Hello, I believe that we're live. My name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for joining me, if you're joining me for this live event, or if you're watching this after it's been released. I hope that you'll find some lovely tidbits. This is office hours, coffee talk, coffee clutch. It's kind of had a few different names over the years. But basically, this is the time that I like to set aside and answer questions, help out as best I can. The chat is open, so feel free to avail yourselves of the chat at your discretion. This is, I'm fond of saying, your time. This is your coffee hour or singing questions and answers hour. So I don't have an agenda. I'm here to answer your questions, and here we go. Hi Jeff, thanks for this live. During vocalizations, to have a more stable larynx, the vowel, and I'm presuming that you mean O, can be practiced keeping the lips similar but not completely closed like the vowel oo. Thank you. So can it be practiced? That's interesting. Really cool question. Yeah. I would normally advocate for what I would call trumpeting the lips. Kind of like a Mick Jagger sort of a thing. If you're familiar with Mick Jagger, he's got that like kind of open lip thing. And actually, if you can keep an oo sound, but trumpet the lips a little bit, you'll get greater volume consistency between your other vowels and the oo vowel. So I know that you were talking about keeping the lips similar to the oo, and I'm actually suggesting that the oo be more similar to the O. This is going to help with overall volume consistency and the overall consistency of the sound of your voice as it's perceived by other people, the people that are listening to you, your audience, if you will. So yeah, I'd start with that. It can be a little tricky, you know, to get that sorted out at first, but it's worth working with and just practicing. Cool, it's great to see some people popping in and the chat lighting up. Chris Becca Music says, hey there. Hello, welcome. If you've got a question, now is the time. And especially, if I may say so, I do my absolute best to get to all of the questions throughout this chat. But the sooner you get your questions in, the more time I have to answer them, to get in on them, to think about it. And we're going to go for about an hour today. So yeah, ask your questions, please. Stephanie V. Hey Jeff, love your videos. Thank you very much, Stephanie. I truly appreciate it. Watching them for years. Again, thank you. I always have trouble with throat tension, and I'm thinking that it's because I don't consistently practice. Any thoughts on this? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like you may have in fact answered your own question in this regard. Having a daily practice is essential to making consistent progress in any musical venture, whether it's singing or otherwise. So yeah, getting on your daily practice, that would be really, really good. Now there's another side to this, but it won't get answered unless you have the daily practice too, which is that usually throat tension here, frequently it's habitual. In other words, before I had singing technique, I used to sing songs like this, and that will carry over even while you're working on technique. And you have to make a sort of transition into the new way of using your technique, the new way of using your voice. So, but again, facilitated by daily practice. Also, if you're having throat tension, you're almost certainly using more vocal fold engagement because there's not enough airflow to make the vocal folds work and give you the pitches that you want. So you might, whether you think you have a good breathing practice or not, if you haven't investigated apagio breath management. If you're not familiar with that phrase, I would highly recommend you investigate it. There's a lot of resources on my channel. There's also a really great one web page synopsis that was done by Shirley Emmons. You can look that up. It's a little deep, like it gets a little bit into the technical details, but I still think that she did a beautiful job of summarizing the practice, and it will get you started. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Get started on that. Get a daily practice. Even if you're not investigating all the apagio stuff immediately, just get into a daily practice, 5-10 minutes. That is ultimately what's going to be what helps you figure out what's actually in play for that throat tension, and then work around it. Chris Beckham Music says, thank you for your videos, Jeff. They've helped me a lot. Excellent. That is exactly why they are there. I am glad that they are there, and I hope that they continue to serve you well into the unforeseeable future. How long should practice go for? Kevin Jones writes. Good question. Comes up from time to time. Hasn't come up in a while, actually. Hasn't come up in a while. I'm sorry. There is no real end-all, be-all answer for that. It depends on what you're singing, the demands of your repertoire, where you are in your practice, all of those things. So, some general guidelines. If you want to, if you're working on the technical aspects of your voice and you want to see consistent progress, generally 15 to 20 minutes per day of what many people call warm-ups, and I call them on my channel warm-ups, but they're technical practices. And 15 to 20 minutes a day of that should yield consistent practice over the long term of your singing. Now, there's another side to that, which is that if you're doing those 15 to 20 minutes of vocalizations, but you're not making a conscious effort to apply them to the songs that you're singing, then you may not make the kind of progress that you'd like to see. In other words, your old habits are just defeating all the vocalization practice. It will take longer. I do think, and I would say that this has played out in my clients over the years, even if you do that scenario, which is less than ideal, you'll still see progress. It's just going to take a lot longer. The more that you can vocalize and then consciously apply those practices to your repertoire, the faster it will all go. And the application, I've done a few videos on that, and it's something that's come up a couple times in the comments on the channel, and I need to want to do a bit more about that, to talk about how to apply the vocalization and technical practices to your repertoire so that you make more headway, basically. You're not doing one thing to help with your technique and then doing another thing that basically kind of undoes your practice. Nina, I'm just starting. I already love having practice with you. Thanks. You're very welcome, Nina. Thanks for joining us today. As you get into your practice, if you've got questions, I try to do these regularly. I'm going to do them more regularly moving forward. Come back and check in, ask a question, read the chat, stuff like that. Stephanie V, thank you so much. You're very welcome. Arvind Gobardam, coffee. Tea today. I'm having a cup of tea. Big, top secret. I've actually had the last month off of coffee just because, why not, basically. It wasn't my idea. It was my wife was like, I want to see what happens to you if you take a month off coffee. And I'm like, why? But, it seemed like a reasonable enough kind of experiment. So, but I've only got, what is it? Today's the 13th. So I've got, now here's the thing. Saturday will be 4 weeks, but it was the 17th of September that I stopped. So do I go with the 4 week? I would love to hear your thoughts about this in the chat. Is it 4 weeks or is it 30 days? When do I get to have that delicious first cup? Because I'm looking forward to it. I'm already planning it all out. Good to see you, Jeff. You the master. Aaron, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Melissa, hi, Jeff. Love your videos. Found you back in February and have all your alto warm-ups bookmarked. Awesome. Thank you so much. I totally appreciate that. I hope that they serve you well, Melissa. Oh, OT So Giants. OT So Giants. What that means. My vocal coaches have put their foot down 60 minutes at a time for me. I used to do several hours, but have caused some minor setbacks. Strain, yeah, that's, you know, I frequently quote Chopin, who used to talk about his students, and he said that if they practiced more than 3 hours, they were wasting their time. Now, what he meant by that was that 3 hours on the instrument, but then you could go and like study music theory. You could do some critical listening. You could do some comparative listening. Like if I don't know what genre you're working in or you're practicing in, but listen to several examples of vocalists in those genres. And and when I say critically, I don't mean like, oh, that one was terrible and oh, that one was kind of nice and that was awful. I feel like I'm gonna vomit. Like, I mean, what are the critical aspects of their singing? How are they phrasing? What are they doing at the ends of their phrases? How are they entering a phrase? Where are they breathing and how obvious is it? And compare it to this other vocalist over here who's also in the genre, maybe singing the same song if it's a cover. What are the critical, objective aspects of their performance? How can we look at those two and learn from them? How do they make you feel? What does it inform about your own performance and what you might like to do or you might like to avoid? You can sing for 60 minutes. That doesn't mean you have to stop there. You know, you can read a book on music theory. You can read a book on music history. Why not compare and contrast or at least develop an understanding of, and I don't know what period of music you're singing to, but look at what was happening in the art and architecture world at the same time that the music you were singing, what was happening? How are they all interrelated? That last thing, I wish, when I was at university, I wish they would have tied that together better. I feel like there should have been a greater connection between the schools of art and architecture and the school of music, because so much of what was happening, slow down. Imagine what it's going to be like when I have coffee again. What was happening in art and architecture should have been intertwined with what was happening in music. But anyway, where was I? 60 minutes, I read that. When increasing speed on YouTube videos, does it change the pitch of the note? No, it doesn't actually, which is really amazing if you ask me. No, you can slow them down. So for those of you that maybe aren't aware of that, and I know that sometimes the exercises that I play are fast, and there's a reason for that, but that's neither here nor there right now. If they're too fast for you, there's a gear icon in the lower right, hand corner of the screen. And if you click on it, it'll give you like a variety of different options, but one of them will be speed. You can speed them up or slow them down as befits your needs. If you do slow them down, try to get them back to the tempo that they were originally in. They were done at that speed for a reason. It's not because I drank too much coffee that day, or I was in a hurry, or whatever. I don't know. Cole Claire. I'm a baritone, I think. When I start getting into the higher range of my voice, I feel like I have to get louder and push harder. But in your baritone vocal warm-up, you say, keep it relaxed. How? Okay, relaxed is different from trying, and it depends on where you're putting the energy, but I can understand why that would be confusing or perceived as being misleading. When I say keep it released, the air pressure is dynamic. So if we're expanded and engaged and we're really pushing here, but we're static, that's almost as unhelpful as if we're not really engaged enough or at all. The idea is to be dynamic so that as I ascend, there is an increase in engagement and subglottic air pressure as I ascend, and then it's going to ease ever so slightly. Now, the amount of increase and the amount of easing is very, very minor. It would do well to just think about it as opposed to trying to actually do anything with it. In other words, have the intention of increasing on the ascending scale, have the intention of backing away, but keep the experience here relatively consistent. As you go higher and higher, there is a baseline level of subglottic air pressure and hence volume, because they're related, that you will create in order to keep the sound consistent. So in other words, as I in order to sing that scale there, I'm going to make a bit of a crescendo because I'm increasing the subglottic air pressure. I'm not trying to get louder. It's a result of lifting, increasing the subglottic air pressure so that the vocal fold can perform consistently. I can have a consistent sound. One of the consequences of that is an increase in volume because I am increasing the pressure. There is a small amount of air more moving over the vocal folds as we go higher and higher. But the airflow doesn't really increase all that much. It's really the subglottic air pressure that increases quite dramatically. So by keep it relaxed, I mean keep it dynamic. We want to avoid getting locked up. We want to be dynamic, so it's going to kind of ebb and flow as we go up and down those scales, continuing on into the upper register of our voices. And yes, to have consistent voce piena in testa, a consistent sound of chest voice in head voice, it's going to increase in volume. That is a natural consequence of that practice. Who is your favorite artist? Saludos from Mexico. Ooh, that's a tough one. Gosh, I do come back to Paul McCartney over and over again. I may go over to Jeff Buckley for a while. I may go over to Laurie Anderson for a while. I've gone through long phases of only listening to Debussy or instrumental music. I have been listening, I end up listening to a lot of what my clients are working on. So I've been listening to James Morrison a bit recently and a lot of Radiohead, and I really enjoy that music. I think it's great. I think James Morrison's doing a beautiful job. I do love Adele. I think she sounds great. Favorite though? I do keep on coming back to Sir Paul. I must admit, most of my entire life really, I come back to Paul McCartney over and over again. Had a mild case of COVID this year. Melissa, I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope that you've made a full and complete recovery. And I think you're going to get into that now. Didn't think much of it at the time, but later noticed a decline in my vocal tone, which was mediocre to start with. Any of your vids or tips you'd recommend? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. You haven't said this year. So the strange thing about this, I mean, I guess it's not that strange, is it? Because if I get a cold and you get the same cold, we may have very different responses to it. You know, I might get really, really sick, and you might shrug it off and have no issues whatsoever. So you might have to be patient with this one. It might take some time. There are some people that I've spoken with about their recoveries from COVID where it just seems to linger. It kind of seems to go on and on and on. And there was another individual on the channel who mentioned something kind of similar to what you're experiencing. My advice to you would be to maximize your time in the comfortable areas of your voice that are not challenging so that you can maintain as much vocal function as possible and give yourself time to recuperate and heal. I would suggest highly that you carefully monitor your physical exertion levels no, I'm not concerned about you getting like fatigued during the singing process necessarily, but you want to work on your technique where you are feeling most energetically right in the game. You know, like feeling really, really good about the energy levels that you've going on, so that you are practicing the technique very well. In other words, you're not getting fatigued, and normally when we get fatigued, our technique starts to slide, and we're not doing it as effectively as we could. So if you're starting to feel a little bit tired, then take a break and maybe come back to it, or call it good for the day and come back the next day. I might suggest that this is a really good time to work on things like, if you don't already read music, learn to read music, work on music theory, do some critical listening. Like I talked about a moment ago, there are other things that you can do in music that isn't singing that will help you. You might get a piano app, or if you have a piano, or if you can afford like a little mini keyboard, learn the notes there. That will absolutely help you, not only with understanding what you're singing, but in the future when you have to practice singing, if you can read the notes and you know the notes on the piano, then you can plunk out melodies. They don't have to be in time. They don't have to be, you know, at the tempo of the song for you to be able to work on them and study them. And, you know, for those that don't play piano, it's worth mentioning there's only 12 notes. They just repeat over and over again. So from here to here, you have C to C. Then you get C to C again. So this is a C, this is a C. D flat or C sharp, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G. You know, it just moves up and down in octaves. There's just the 12 notes that we have to keep a track of. So now would be a good time to maybe explore some of those other aspects of the music making process that will inform your singing as you work on your recovery. Yes, Cole, you should have even breath across the phrase, including if the notes go higher, try to avoid adding pressure. Yeah, I mean, well, yes and no, OT so giants. I mean, yes on the evenness of it. There is an increase in subglottic air pressure as we ascend, and it gets particularly noticeable as you ascend over the secondo passaggio, moving towards the next registration event. But it doesn't feel like you're clenching your muscles. It's still dynamic. It's still flexible, and supple is the word that I always think about. It's meant to be dynamic. But really, really close on that OTSO Giants, and thank you for jumping into the chat and talking with Cole about that. Mark Freeman, hi from San Diego. Hello, Mark Freeman. I hope all is well in San Diego. It's a bit cool here this morning. I happen to be in Northern California right now. Yin Passion, hey Jeff, thanks so much for all you do. You're very welcome. I use your videos every day. They have helped me so much. I am wondering if you have any tips for getting involved in music. I'm 23 and just graduated college, but I already feel like I'm too old just be getting involved in music because a lot of people have been doing it for like 10 plus years already. I love singing so much though, and I want to pursue it. Well, okay. Yes, there are some things that, the boat has set sailed. If you were trying to be a 16-year-old pop star, that boat set sail. That's not going to come back again. But 23, I mean, you got plenty of time. Plenty of time. But that doesn't mean you have time to waste. So get started. I think my first advice to you, I think I put it back. Hold on a second. Did I put it back? I put it in the hallway. Okay. There's a book called Ari, but it's not called Ari Herstand. Ari Herstand is the author. I have no affiliations. I get no money back. I'm not connected in any way with this. But it's called, I believe it's called Making It in the New Music Business. making it in the new business of music, making it in the new music business, I think is what it is. Yeah, Making It in the New Music Business by Ari Herstand. And in the book, they do an amazing job of laying out a wide variety. No, it's right in front of me. Hold on a second here. I knew I didn't put that back. Okay, so you'll still be able to hear me, but I have to walk to the other side of the piano to get the book so I can show it to you. And then that way, all questions will be alleviated. So there's the book. And you can see the title. Oh, there's a sticker right on there. How to Make It in the New Music Business. Anyways, that's the book. I would suggest going to the library and having a look at that book. Or if you can find a used copy inexpensively, order it. It's a useful tool to have. You mentioned singing, but that's but one aspect of it. You could be a backing vocalist. You could be a pro lead singer. Do you want to be a songwriter? Do you want someone to write songs for you? Do you want to just do covers? There's so many different. You could do production music, singer for hire. You could be a studio musician. There's so many different avenues to pursue in being a singer. You could be a singing instructor. You could make YouTube videos about singing. There's lots and lots of ways to go about it. 23 is hardly even remotely close to being too late. Get started. And by get started, I mean get a plan. You don't have to sit down today and practice for 3 hours. That would probably be counterproductive. Do your practices. Get into a daily practice so that you're working on the craft of your voice. Have a look through the book. Figure out the avenues that you wish to pursue. From there, you can then kind of look at the finished product and work your way back so that you can look at the small incremental steps that are going to take you forward. I think it's never been a better time to be in the world of music making, music business, if you like. There's so many different aspects to it. The means of production, in other words, recording equipment and things like that, has never been better and more accessible and less expensive than it is right now. In other words, you can get extremely high quality gear that is relatively easy to use, that will make very, very professional sounding recordings for you. And there are people around the world, not unlike myself, that offer forums like this that are free. There's it doesn't cost anything to come here and ask a question. And there are many other people that do this very same thing. You can get help, you can get questions answered. It's never been a better time. Get started. That's the most the most pressing advice I can say right now is get started today. A little bit every day will get you there. Mark Freeman, the choir I sing meets for 3-hour practices is grueling. Yeah, I bet. Thankfully, you're not gonna sing for 3 hours straight, thankfully, but that's a long time to rehearse. Yin, I started at 45, now 48, things are now starting to happen for me. Never too late. Thank you, OTSO Giants, thank you so much. I really appreciate your contributions to the chat today. And you make a very good point. It's gonna take some time, Yin. You're gonna work at it for a while, and then things will slowly ramp up. But you just have to stay in there. You have to keep going. And OTSO Giants is replying to Mark. Okay. Let's see here. Where am I? Whenever I recycle the chat, it kind of like there's so much great stuff here. Okay, so a lot of that's conversation that doesn't really involve me. Appreciated. Love Adele. Do you play any other instruments? Arvind, presumably you're asking me. Yes. I mean, I use the word play kind of specifically. I consider myself a piano operator. I don't, like, I operate this instrument. I wouldn't say that I'm a piano player. I'm a guitar operator. I can operate guitars and bass. I might actually be a bass player, because I played bass for a long time in bands before I started to switch things up. I am a saxophone player. I am a flute player. No one should ever have to suffer to listen to me play the clarinet. I can do things with it, but no one should have to hear what that sounds like. But yeah, I'm a saxophone player as well. And I have been for a very long time. Fully agree, Yin. How can I improve my range from E2 to E5? Presumably, I don't know if you mean within that range or outside of that range. I'd have to hear what you were doing to be really, really specific. Off the top of my head, making sure that the registration events are as smooth as can possibly be, having a really great arpeggio breath management practice so you're getting good dynamic responses across them. But whenever it comes to range, it's always a question of where are the registration events and how are you navigating them. If you're navigating them really well, great, you're on your way. If you're not, or you're not sure, or maybe you just think you are and no one's evaluated them for you, well, then we just don't know. And it's really not, it's not possible for me to say exactly what's happening. But that would be my first thoughts for you. Mark Freeman. Jeff's breathing for singing course helped me learn to sing high notes in a relaxed way. Oh, so Mark is replying to the bass E2 to E5, basically keeping steady airflow so I'm not tempted to push more air at the top of the tessitura. Yeah, it's about the creation of that subglottic air pressure as opposed to big pushes. Thank you, Mark, for mentioning the breathing for singing course. I always, I'm always in two minds about like how much I should talk about the courses and things like that. But arpeggio breath management changed everything for me about how my voice was operating. If there is one thing that improved not just range and registration event practice, but basically every aspect of my singing, it was the adaptation to arpeggio breath management, which I thought I was practicing before, but I wasn't. And if you're sticking your stomach out and then pulling it back in the breathing process, you're not either, even if someone has told you you are. So I know that's a bit of a contentious statement, and I know that the singing community doesn't agree on that. I would invite you to read the breathing explanations in Richard Miller's book, Training Tenor Voices, and perhaps investigate Shirley Emmons' website page on arpeggio breath management. My breathing course that I made, that Mark is referring to, was specifically made to help people establish or reinforce an arpeggio practice, and to do it faster than the amount of time it took me to make the changeover. Because it took me about 2 years before I really felt that I had adopted arpeggio. I would say within 9 months, I started to see some changes and some differences and some positive aspect to the practice, but it took me a long time to work through it. And when I made the course, I wanted to make something that would make that go as fast as I could possibly make it go for the vocalist wanting to make this adjustment. So, if that's in your means, Mark here has mentioned it. I mentioned it too. Obviously, I made it, so I'm a little bit biased in that I think it's really good. But what I will say is this: whether it's my course or someone else's arpeggio course, as long as you can make the determination that it is in fact arpeggio breath management and not belly breathing, stick your stomach out, suck it in, then I would highly recommend you investigate and practice arpeggio breath management. Melissa, It was in March, I believe it was the Omicron wave. It's very much like a cold for most folks here. Yeah, so a lot of people say, and yet some people then have these really long-term after effects that seem to linger. I think, patience is going to play into this, Melissa. And then obviously, I do hope that you will eventually work your way out of it, but it might take a little bit of time. Hi, I really want a brighter tone for tenor. Please help me. Apart from the NG practice, what else can I do to brighten my tenor tone? I'll tell you what. Here's one really quick tip. And honestly, this is a tip for all of us. It's not like it's just for brightening your tone. But frequently, the culprit, the problem with getting that brighter tone is that we're too heavy on the bottoms of scales. So if you find yourself singing a scale, all at roughly the same volume, look for the least viable sound at the bottom. It should still sound like you. It should still be in tune. It should have the same tone as the rest of the scale, but it's less in volume. What frequently happens is that we're very heavy on those lower notes, and we carry that thyroarytenoid dominance, that chest voice dominance, we carry the weight of it onto the tops of those scales. And that level of muscular activity with that muscle group dampens down the soft tissue resonance, and it prevents the vocal fold from being able to elongate as effectively as it could. All of that costs you that brilliance, that brightness in your voice. So when you do your vocalizations, when you're singing a phrase in a song, look at the contour of the line. If it starts low and goes high, just as a practice, start with the least viable sound. Maybe do a recording. See what it sounds like. See if there are differences. Start with that. Melissa, thank you. My day job is dance teacher, so I fully understand not pushing while fatigued. Exactly. Like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Form breaks down when you start to get tired. Exactly. Mark, I tested positive for COVID January 1 this year. I'm sorry to hear that. It's not until July. Yeah. I did Jeff's breathing course to help build my stamina. Taking long walks helped too. Thank you for that, Mark. Yeah. See, that's the thing. It seems like the new variants. So it's wonderful that the actual symptoms in a lot of the cases seem to be not as bad. Like people's lungs aren't dissolving or getting blown up or something like that on ventilators. But it seems to stretch out for a while. My brother-in-law had COVID and is still feeling a lot of fatigue, and this was months and months ago. So, yeah, thank you, Mark, for that. And then thank you again for mentioning the breathing for singing course. I won't go into any more detail than that, but anyways, yeah, Melissa, this may take a bit of time. Fernando, Paul is king, right? Paul, it's Sir Paul. Sir Paul. At least, I don't think he gave his, I believe it's an OMB, or OBM, Order of the British Monarchy. It's like the first level of knighthood you can get. I don't think he returned his. I know John Lennon returned his, much to his aunt's dismay. But anyways, yeah, like I'm again, no affiliations here, but here's a shout out to Seth Godin, or Godin. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but he does a daily newsletter that I subscribe to. And in a recent one, he said that, if you listen to, everyone thinks about the Beatles and they're this big thing. And what Seth Godin was trying to make was this point that the the sum total of the Beatles' music was bigger than any single one of their parts. And he used, it's like the worst example you could possibly do, is he used a bass line from Paul McCartney as an example of, and what he said in the newsletter was, you know, it sounds like a middle school recital. And so I clicked on it to listen to the isolated bass part, and I think it was from, it was either Hello Goodbye or Obladi. I think it was Hello Goodbye, but it might have been Obladi Oblada. Anyways, it's this beautiful, incredibly even, metronomically accurate, lovely, luscious tone. The articulations are exquisite. The decay is just beautiful. It's like this lovely, amazing bass line. Like I would, you know, I wouldn't give any fingers or things like that to play it, but you know, I could probably work a long time trying to get that tone and that performance and come short for a long time before I might get to it. And I'm just like, that was a really bad example, like of like sum versus total of parts, because that's a beautiful bass line. Now, yes, true, the tune is still awesome, and it is just a bass line, but boy, was it exquisite sounding. Hey Jeff, for the sake of recording, I find myself wishing you do key-specific warm-ups. Love your videos, yet they are typically geared towards overall singing. You're absolutely right, Chad. And you're also, I'd love it if you could do a series that focuses on ear voice preparation in singular keys for the story. Actually, I did do that. There are some of those, actually. And let me see if I have that playlist right here. I'll drop it in the chat. I don't have that right here, but 1 second. Please hold while I try that extension. They're called key specific, and the way that YouTube recently redid how you can view your playlists, and it is not, I am not amused. It is not better. So where are you? There we are, key specific. So now, to be fair, Chad, I didn't do a lot of these. I think, in fact, I've only got 2 keys. But here we are. Chad, why don't you let me know in the chat what key you want me to do next. I think that should have popped up in the chat. What key do you want me to do next for a key-specific warm-up? And I'll do that one. I should be able to do it in the next couple weeks. My production schedule right now is kind of fluid. I've got like a lot of things. And also, I've just been kind of doing stuff that's fun, like things that I'm feeling very interested in. It's a bit of a departure, so I'm not, oh, thank you so much for that. Someone, we'll get to see if this thing works. Someone very kindly, I think that's a super chat, contributed. I really appreciate that. The little cup in the screen, there should be like a little acknowledgement, and then it's going to drop a little ball in the cup, which I'm really excited about. Hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't work, well, that's why I'm not a web programmer. But I think it's going to work. Anyways, I'm hoping that it works. But thank you very much for the support. I truly, there it is. Jimmy, Earl, super chatted. No question, just wanted to say hi and thank you for all your amazing work. Love from New Zealand. Thank you so much. That worked. Well, let's watch for the ball. Okay, I find that really charming. Thank you. Thank you for testing out this new system. In previous live streams, people would contribute, and then I either wouldn't see it or I wouldn't see their question, and I just felt bad about it. And so I wanted to be able to acknowledge people in real time and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. I see that it seems like another one has popped up too. I'll read that in a second. But yeah, Chad, pop in the chat and let me know like what key you want me to do next, and I'll make a note of it. And that's James, super chatted. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Mark Freeman, I would like some videos on minor key exercises. long overdue, honestly, Mark. Long overdue. And they're so pretty as well. So minor key exercises. I've given up on digital note-taking. It's just all got to be on paper. It's fine, whatever. It is a lesson in accepting one's limitations. If I make them digitally, I'd like kind of, you know, I sometimes get back to it, I sometimes don't, whatever. If it's on paper, it gets done. How do you practice without, how do you practice without voice fatigue? Cole, good question. Stop when you start to get fatigued, and limit or gauge your practices in such a fashion so that you can avoid it, or you identify the practices that are causing you the fatigue so that you avoid those practices or come to an understanding of why those practices are leading to vocal fatigue so that you can fix it. You can adjust your technique, adjust your arpeggio breath management, whatever it might be. There's no one reason for vocal fatigue, so you're going to have to do a little bit of investigation here to understand the roots of it so that you can work your way around it. Zachary, I'm the wolf. While on the topic of covers, do you have any recommendations yourself for choosing a piece to do? I always find myself falling into a pit because I want to do so many different songs. Maybe, kind of. Yes. Yes. Yes, of course I do. Of course I do. If you're doing this because you're loving the music, that in and of itself is answer. You don't need any more reason than that. If you're doing it for a specific technical reason, identify the technical reason, and then understand whether it's an entire cover that you need to do or just a riff from the cover. In other words, do you have to learn a whole song just because you want to learn to sing, you know, a few high notes back to back over the secondo passaggio? If you don't need to, then just work on the riff and then work on the music that you love. There's something I'm really bad at, and I haven't figured out my way around it, which is that I tend to not fully produce the covers that I work on. I just work on them for a little while and then I move on to the next one. There is something to be learned in the process of getting a cover ready for either performance or recording. That I don't know if you really start to look, you know, you hear the expression that like the hardest part is like the last 10%, or you know, you spend 80% of your time on the last 10% of prepping it. That's the stuff we've got to get at, I think, to make significant process. And I think about that specifically as it relates to when I've been making albums, and I haven't made an album in some time now. But it's always those last couple of songs where I feel like all of the big headway for myself as an artist was getting made. You know, all the process of writing the music and getting in the studio or using my studio and doing all the recordings and all the tracking, like it's the last 10%. It's that last little bit of making that record, the tracking phase anyway. That's where the learning happens. So you gotta access, I think, that last 10%. And as best as I can figure it, that is most easily accessed by getting things ready for either live performance or recording. So if you've got a song that you love or you like well enough, you tolerate, get it ready to record or get it ready to take to an open mic. I'm not sure if an open mic is really enough, though. I don't know if that's enough pressure. I think it has to be a bit more. So get it ready to record, and then get into that process, and then see what happens. That's where I think a lot of the big learning comes from. As for choosing the pieces, mostly it's what you love, or if it is meant to teach you something. Like the album that I did, the last album I did, I think was called The Atlantean. I've done a few different things since then, but that was the last full one. And in that album, I was all about the utilization of my technique at the secondo passaggio, between, like here and here. That was what I was after. And so every song is like hovering right there in that range of my voice. Then that's the other, you're talking about covers, but in that case, I was writing the songs. So thanks so much, Jeff. You're welcome, Yin. Jorge, I always listen to you, Mr. Roca. Thank you. I do my best, and it is my intent to always give you the best information that I have access to. How do you learn to play and sing at the same time? Cole, I got to pick it up a little bit because we're almost out of time. Do one at a time and then put them together. Make the process. So yeah, forgive me, folks. I'm going to start to kind of truncate my answers in the interests of making sure that I address as many questions as I can. How do you learn to play and sing at the same time? Succinctly, work on your singing, work on your playing, make the coordination of them its own practice. Kevin Jones retracted. Cole, what is your singing range, Jeff? Generally speaking, I'm quite happy singing songs in performance that will go from here to about there. My actual range is closer to like that-ish, but these areas, I mostly just practice to make sure that this area is really solid. I don't have a huge interest in singing repertoire that ascends into this area. I have done on a few occasions, but it's like not like the thing for me, really. I don't know. I'm really all about the secondo passaggio, and I want it to be as smooth and creamy through there as I can. This is great. I've started your breathing exercise. Excellent. Rather than breathing with my stomach expanded, I immediately took to your chest lat breathing. Your way is a revelation. Please explain why. James Johnson, succinctly, when you expand like this, you are in fact drawing the diaphragm down. When you draw the diaphragm down and you have this expanded cavity, then when you engage like the core body muscles lifting up towards the sternum, it more directly interacts with it. So belly breathing will kind of gets you something if you're using an awful lot of muscle engagement through the core of your body. But when you do that expansion, you are pulling the diaphragm down. The diaphragm connects across your body. So you're pulling it down and you are engaged with it quite directly in this descended capacity, which is just, it just works much more efficiently and accurately than if it's collapsed. The whole point of breathing is to keep the diaphragm from ascending back up. We want to keep it in that lowered position so that the musculature can continue to interact with it, and we create that subglottic air pressure. I have to admit, even though years and years and years, I get confused about the actual muscle engagement in the diaphragm. It's the reverse of what you think it is, or at least the way that I think of it, and so I'm not stating the muscle engagement in the diaphragm deliberately because I don't want to say it wrong, because I know that my thoughts on it are converse. But if you read Shirley Emmons' webpage on it, she'll tell you exactly the levels of engagement in the diaphragm. What she will also say on that page is it is primarily passive in the creation of the subglottic air pressure. It's the surrounding structures in conjunction with the diaphragm in that lowered position that's creating the subglottic air pressure. Order of the British, thank you, Alice sings number 1. Totally appreciate that. I didn't think it was Order of the British Monarchy. You are right. You are absolutely right. I remember that. Thank you for clarifying that. Kayla, I heard that anyone can learn to sing, but my voice is garbage. If I have a terrible voice, can I still learn? Of course you can. We can all get better. I mean, we're not all going to hop on stage at the Met. I don't personally want to. That's not what I want to do. I want to write really exquisitely beautiful and sublimely created, popular genre-ish songs that people can enjoy. That's what I want to do with my artistic time. I also want to help people sing. It's also very relative. Tom Waits, some people would say, has an incredibly emotive voice. Some people would say his voice sounds like a frog barking. Both, in their own opinions, have an argument to be made. I mean, Tom Waits does a lot of different things with his voice. I'm thinking there's like a couple songs where he's kind of like barking it out, and it's really weird. You know, Dylan. People love Bob Dylan. His voice is not so good. Doesn't sound great. I can't really listen to Bob Dylan for much more than about that long right there. Before, I mean, I love his music. I love listening to other people sing Bob Dylan songs. It's all relative. And there are, you know, millions of people would disagree with what I just said. Your voice is your own. There is but one of you. I say this all the time. I'll say it again. Your voice is your own. We can always learn more. We can always hone our craft. We can always learn to use our bodies in conjunction with our voices so we get more from our voices, maybe get more expressivity. Start there. Have a daily practice. Maybe try to step aside from expectations about what it should be or what it could be. Maybe just look at it from where you are right now and where you might like to be, not ultimately, but tomorrow. And maybe that just means, I want to sing this scale. Where I don't pause at the top. There's a pause there. That's counterproductive. Just start there, maybe, and then see where you go. There's only one of you. Hello, Jeff. Can I ask why is it when I say... Wait, did I miss anybody? YouTube does not make it easy to find your old videos. Cole, too, yes. Most people don't like their own voice. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well said. Thank you, Cole. Mark. Yeah, I know, right, Mark? It can be really tricky to find the older stuff. And I purposefully started to, you know, when I created this channel, I purposely made it evergreen. I wanted every video to be just as relevant whenever as the first day I created it. And I would say largely that's true. I've done very, very few videos that are kind of timely in a way. But they are there, and I mean, if I may say so, this is part of what my guidebook is very, very helpful for, because it's indexed by, there's like a variety of different indexes in it. But you can search for keywords and like the skills that you're looking for. That would be one like readily available resource. It's not inexpensive. And yeah, searching the channels can also help too, but you have to know what you're looking for, I'm afraid. And the YouTube search on a channel basis isn't great. Hello, Jeff. Can I ask why is it when I sing my larynx always rises? Yeah, that's an old habit. It's root tongue tension. And you will, especially if you're looking for upper register performance, practice that down. There are several videos. I know I just mentioned doing a search on my channel. It's not great, but if you search for larynx on my channel page, you can find videos that work on bringing the larynx down. Basically, part of it is this sound that I make in upper register practice. You. That kind of hollow, open sound can get us in touch with keeping the larynx in a more neutral or lowered position. And that's a way to start that practice. But yeah, you do need to get your larynx lower. We're just about out of time. I want to see if there's anything else here I want to grab, and then I'm going to have to go. Chad, thanks, Jeff. C sharp minor, E minor. Well, that's like 3. C sharp minor, E minor, and B minor, or of course the relative majors would be most useful. I'll hit that playlist as well. Love what you do, and thanks for everything. You're very welcome, Chad. So yeah, so C sharp minor, so that's like E major. What I was going to do, the reason why I stopped doing those key specific ones is it occurred to me that I should do them as both relative major and minor together. So I'll do E major and I'll include some C sharp minor practices. Well, E minor is G major, so G major is already up. I don't know if you're still there or not, Chad, but G major is already up, so you can get on that one. And then B minor, which would be D major. And D major is already up. So actually, two out of the 3 relative majors are already there. Because they're key specific and they primarily do stick, they keep the tonic as a central part of the practices, I don't break it up into like the 6 different Fox as I normally would, because a lot of them would be just me playing the exact same scales. So you'll see if you click over to that playlist, it's easily apparent. But actually, I'll just do E major next, and I'll include more of the, I'll just include like a whole section on C sharp minor in there. I stopped doing them too because it was really difficult to plan them. Like once you figure out where the tonic is, and then you give some consideration to the Fox in question, it really starts to turn into this like very, very specific kind of practices in order to keep those tonics in the right places. So. And there's a lot of chit-chat. My girlfriend knows you as the AEIOU guy. Thank you so much for the exercise warms. You're welcome, Fernando. That's really cool. Different versions of the same song. Hello from Brazil. Hello. Hello. I have to run now. Thank you all. Recommend any books? There's a lot of books. What body warm-ups do you do before you sing? I should do a video on body warm-ups. That's a great idea. Wow, my writing is bad. I'll do that. Stretches, yeah, I'll do some of that stuff. And then Mark saying F major, D minor, then, yeah, sure, F major. I love F major. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful to be here today and spend some time chit-chatting, getting your questions. Carol's saying that your singing teacher has shown me your warm-up videos and they're absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Tell your singing teacher I said thank you. I really appreciate the recommendation there. You're welcome, Arvind. Oh, books. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're wanting to get started in the music business, this, Training Tenor Voices, or the, where did it go now? The Structure of Singing by Richard Miller would be another book that I would recommend to you. That's a good place to start, maybe, I think. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you to those of you who were so kind in supporting the channel, supporting me with Super Chat. I really, really appreciate it. I want to mention it again. Mark Freeman mentioned my Breathing for Singing course. I feel really strongly about this one. Again, if it's not my course on Apogeo, study Apogeo breath management. Whether it's my course or some other course, paid for or otherwise, get into it. It will transform your singing. Until then, have a lovely day. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for everything. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. We'll see you again. I'm going to do these about every 2 weeks, so hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.